Sure. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this lunchtime series webinar. And I'm really thrilled to be able to present to you alongside Kelly Goodsir, my really dear colleague in Australia, and Dr. Sandra Duncan from the USA. We've all been working as a threesome on a project called The Potential Place, which you'll hear lots of in the future. And so I'm going to jump into a component of what we're going to be talking about, which is called What's in Your Cupboard. So I want to share with you, and I suppose this little webinar came about by a day that I was just hanging out in my house at the beach, and I had my grandchildren there, and I had some shelving that my husband had been putting together, and we started to think about putting it together. We were putting it together, and then I said to Louis, my little grandson, hey, look, let's grab a whole pile of stuff and let's see what we can do with it. So I'm going to share with you my experiences of that, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself and a little bit about what my background is as well, just really briefly. And because it's lunchtime, it's really quick. So my name is Michelle Pratt. I've been involved in lots of startup businesses. You might know me from New Shoots Children's Centres. You might know me from New Shoots Creative Play, which is an Australian company. Curiate, that as a resource supply company. Child Labour Free, maybe someone knows me from my work at Child Labour Free, Living and Learning Foundation. One thing that I have missed off here is New Shoots Publishing, which publishes resources and books like Take Another Look, Just Breathe, there's several other books that we obviously have. So the focus and the area of interest that I have personally is all environmental design. It's my passion. So I don't know about you, but I'm a massive hoarder of kitchen equipment. I love to cook. I used to be a chef way back in the dark ages, but I was a chef and I love to cook. And what I want you to do is to actually think about and consider what's in your kitchen, the resources that sit there that you can use to interact and you can use to play with. And learning through play is crucial for children in their early years. And whilst in the kitchen, my grandchildren will often clamber through my drawers and with pure fascination. They literally pull out all sorts of things. These aren't things that come from a catalogue. These aren't things that are sold exclusively for children. And the most important thing is that children will be subjected to a variety of experiences and resources in a really super positive and fun way. And when we think about learning through play, it's crucial for children, which is crucial for children in the early years, exposure to the surrounding world through exploration, through tinkering, through pulling things away, through imagining. It supports sort of that social development of social communication skills, mathematical and scientific concepts. There's a whole pile of things that fit in there. Early literacy, interacting with real life objects. And there's this whole area about independence. And I think let's take a look at how we can turn your everyday household items into rich learning resources. And what I want to do today is to weave this whole area of sustainability through here, where this doesn't need to cost anything. Often we're reusing things, we're rethinking things, and we're considering what do we already have in environments that we can save, collect, and we can take into our early childhood settings. So one of the first areas I want to talk about is to reduce, to reuse, and recycle. So I think these are really important features of what we want to talk to. So here is just stuff that I have a little basket in my laundry at the beach, and I just chuck things as I'm cooking. I just chuck empty containers in there that I think might be usable. And these are some of the things that I just collected over the course of, I think, less than 3 days. Also in there are a few things that Louis found in the cupboard. So he found the lasagna, he found all sorts of bits and pieces. Some of these things were unopened boxes that he just wanted to use as props, but most of them were empty things. The sardines, of course, in the background there, being one of the most fascinating. He couldn't believe that he was asking me, are they definitely dead? And I did say to him, yes, they're definitely dead. And he said, were they real fishes? And I said, yes, they were real fishes, but they're dead and we have them on our toast. And then that, sort of after this period of time, we went on to plaster them on some toast with some salt and pepper and some Worcester sauce. And look, he really, really enjoyed them. So tip number 1 is hold on to all your used packaging. Do not, like there's so much stuff that we just literally chuck in the rubbish bin. Dedicate a space in your kitchen to just having a spare bag hanging there that you can poke all of these things into, that you can take into your centres. And once you get people on board, other people on your team, like it's really broad what you can bring in. Get your teachers involved, get your children involved, get your parents involved. So recycled packaging is a perfect opportunity to develop language skills and learn through role play. It's not limited to kitchen packaging. The bathroom is full of other stuff. There's shampoo bottles, there's laundry things that you can use. Just thinking about what's safe is really important, like thinking about, like things that aren't like cleaning products like Genola or things like that you might not want down low, but just thinking about what you can use. And some packaging examples would be herbs and spices and containers, food box, bags. You can stuff them with newspaper or recycled packaging, things that are going to be chucked out to keep them looking full. There's jars, there's bags, there's dish liquid bottles, there's soap containers, there's shampoo bottles, face creams, perfume bottles, just to name a few. So what I would say to you is utilize everyday tools and utensils. Children grow faster and they learn quicker during the first 6 years of their lives. So I think over time, we've come to understand this at a greater level. So during these formative years, children are building their knowledge and understanding of the world through their real day experiences. So when we get a bowl and a whisk out to bake a cake, children are observing and building a knowledge base of the world around them, their sense of place incorporated within it. Incorporating everyday utensils provides children opportunities to practice these observations and to actually think about the hands-on approach through critical child-initiated play. So obviously in this image you'll see there's like just some colanders, there's just some leaves and sticks. It doesn't need to be fancy, it doesn't need to be expensive. These are things that you can collect with children. They don't necessarily have to be things that you specifically go and collect. They could be in the garden, they could be on a walk, they could be in a range of places. So I always recommend, and I think this is really interesting, collecting adult size utensils and equipment. They're familiar, they're really, really, really durable, and they allow for large emotions and larger movement and are much more fun and interesting. In addition, they tend to be easier to tidy up and the pieces don't get lost, and consider the texture and the material of these objects. So I think this is a really important thing in terms of sustainability. You can reuse a lot of the equipment. Now, a lot of people have said to me over time, yeah, but it's cheaper to buy it at Kmart. And yes, it is. Sometimes a pot is cheaper at Kmart than it is in a secondhand store. And so I think it's looking at like, how do you make that work for yourselves and what's your philosophy or your thinking around that? So here's another image. This is just what we found in my cupboard. These were things that were in my cupboards and drawers that Louis found. So I had cookbooks in the cupboard, I had bowls, I had scales, I had tongs. I found a set of fairy lights that were actually from Christmas, that were in the Christmas display thing when I was doing this with the children. That was a scarf that was stuffed in a cupboard somewhere, some jelly molds, and some little silver bowls that I used for dips, some coasters. So there's a few examples of sort of things that you can grab from your cupboard that might help. So when observing children in this type of play, they'll use their communication skills extensively to mimic adults. They love to copy you. You know, you hear the most hilarious things in the family corner, don't you? Like, yeah, my dad does this, my mum does this. You know, it's really, 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 really funny. So experiences observed at home will be imitated, they'll be reenacted through experimental learning. Children will stack, they'll stir, they'll mix, they'll fill, they'll bang, they'll tip, they'll empty, they'll pour, they'll shape, they roll, they mix and fold, all encapsulated with a whole pile of hilarious conversations that you hear along the way. And some examples of everyday tools and utensils include Kitchen tools, colanders, sieves, rolling pins, small pots, pans, teapots, coffee pots, cookie cutters, timers, mortars, pestles, whisks, pie molds, sponges, dishcloths, tea towels, pot holders, appliances with their cords removed. Look, we found an old whisk, and Louis pulled out the blender stick out of my drawer, and I looked at it and went like, that is absolutely a crap blender. Like, I have been meaning to buy a new one for absolutely ages. So I literally cut the cord off and put some masking tape around the blades, and he was really happy with the fact that he'd tromped that off to the family play corner that he was making. Clocks, telephone, hair rollers, old GPSs, the old GPS that you have, fabulous for a till or like a swiping thing, like as a shop swiping thing, because everyone's using tablets. He used an old GPS that he found in a lower drawer, and I thought, oh, we never use that GPS anymore. You can have that. The funniest thing that he found was a radio, an old radio. It was for we live in the Bay of Plenty, and I always have a radio and with batteries in it for civil defence, because we live on Papamoa Beach, and it's like, I'm always concerned about safety. So what I did is, he found the radio. Oh my goodness gracious me, it was so frustrating. He managed to find the national station that's got all the concert music. So we had blaring concert music coming out, but look, he was really, really happy with the thought that he'd found the radio, found a station, loved the dials. He's 3 years old, was having a blast with it. So you can incorporate things like that, some random things. Office equipment, stamps, envelopes, seals, stickers, junk mail, computer mouse, gardening equipment, toolboxes, tools, picnic sets, etc. It's endless. And the thing I love about it is, it doesn't have to cost you anything. It's about how you coordinate and put it together. I want you to think about objects that promote independence. And there's always many objects we interact with in a daily to take care of ourselves. And I think that thinking about this and allowing children to use these objects during play to practice their self-help skills and building independence is really important. So, like thinking and discussing with children self-help skills and self-care, why we wash our hands, like what can we do? How do we, like this one is an image, I believe this one's from Kimberly Crisp. No, maybe not. It's an image that just is about self-care, about washing your hands and putting things away. So trying on clothes, shoes, hats, accessories, children will converse, they'll enjoy, they'll imagine all the possibilities through play. So some examples of personal care items that you'll all be completely aware of: dress-up clothes, varieties of fabrics, cultural diversity in the community that you serve. You lay it upon open-ended play, jewellery, purses, handbags, shoes, belts, head wraps, scarves, handheld mirrors. There's so many things that are available. Suitcases and travel bags may feature in dramatic play areas where communities travel a lot, or leading up to a holiday period. Bathroom tools, makeup, hairbrushes, hair dryers, curling tongs. Linen, this is something that gets missed a little bit. Linen, pillowcases, blankets, sheets, bibs, quilts, pillows, beach towels, sleeping bags are a really great one. Small childlike sleeping bags, if you can find some of those floating around, they're often, children grow out of them really quickly. Laundry equipment, brushes, shovels, brooms, etc. All of these being real objects and real items. They don't need to be fancy. Here's another image just here, and this is what Louis set up. So there was an old tea set that you can see there in the background. That was in my garage. That was my sister had picked it up from my mum and dad's when she was cleaning that out, and she just left it in my garage thinking that we might use that. Some candles that were in the barbecue area that he'd popped over on the side. There were the coffee holders that were sitting in the kitchen on the kitchen bench that day. There was the containers from the box in the laundry. There was a gin bottle that was sitting there, which I had just soaked the label off, that was sitting there, that he thought was a really good water bottle. You could add some glasses, some cups, whatever you've got. You don't have to be, there's no right or wrong. It's all about fun. Real world objects and aesthetic decor. I'll talk to you about this. So empower and trust children to take care of real world objects, setting the table with care, using the tea set, small vases with hand-picked things. Now, things will get broken, but they generally get broken once And then generally children then will learn how to care for things. So it's about how we value their independence. Accidents do happen when you first introduce these new and real resources. Offering items gradually and modelling how they're to be used and to teach children the responsibility of caring for our resources is a really important feature. Eventually you can step back and then you'll be able to trust the children in their capabilities of what they're doing. So a welcoming space is generally a space that feels familiar and warm. And this is a really lovely example of a space that feels warm and familiar. Layering the environment with meaningful objects that provide familiarity for children can be as simple as layering out tablecloths, recycling a jar to fill with flowers, collecting a range of objects from your garden or somebody else's garden on the way to work, or filling a pot with fresh herbs. Children love to care, to pick and to smell, and it would be swapping out photographs inside frames and filling them with art. There's a whole range of ways that you can go about this. So depending on what the children are familiar with and the context of your space, real world and aesthetic decor may include some vases, some hammocks, Indigenous art, some woven mats or quilts, or even some ski equipment. It depends where you are in the world and what your community looks like. So props, promoting roles within your community. Children are connected to the wider community through experiences of their everyday lives, and beyond the home and the early childhood environment, there's such things as grocery shopping, taking pets to the vet, filling up a car with petrol, or going to the doctors. Noticing, recognising, and responding to these interests is a key opportunity to setting the scene for role play. Really, really important. So during these experiences, children play and they work together, they express their fears, their feelings, they communicate, they respond to one another's needs and requests. I mean, it's fascinating to watch. And by drawing on resources we already have available around the home, we can create props, boxes, open earn opportunities such as old loyalty cards, business cards, reference photos, books, cookbooks, picture books, framed pictures of familiar places, first aid boxes, including plasters, bandages, thermometers, etc. There's a whole range of things that you can do. This is the nail salon at Katie's daycare. Katie's a friend of mine in Australia, but honestly, she just uses stuff that she can find. Look, they don't have to be fancy setups. They can be real things. They can be resources that you already have in your environment. She's included, you know, like a tissue box, but they're often about places that children see and feel and hear based on their experiences in their lives on a day-to-day basis. So you can follow Enspirement for ideas. You can incorporate them into your everyday home equipment. Have a look for it. There's endless ideas that you can find on Enspirement. Tap on, set up an account, have a look, sign in today for a month's free trial. You'll be able to figure out where to take it from there. Go into the Discover section, which has got some articles and some video content on how to upload Inspires and how to set up your account and what to do with your account. But take a look and see what you can find.
Michelle, you just took me back about 30 years there, because that's how long I've been in early childhood education. When I first started in ECE, it was all about the plastic fantastic, and it was all about having the latest flashes equipment and you know, the stuff that you could buy. And I'm just so glad to see, you know, we had all the brightly coloured plastic cups and brightly coloured everything. It was like a cacophony of stuff, and it was assaulting on the senses, actually. Those images that you just showed us there of beautifully presented recycled objects and reused objects, that feels so much better to me. And I'm so glad that we've moved on. It just feels like a really welcoming, inviting space to be in. And you're right, we need to ignite children's all of their senses. And I think we also need to remember that for many children, they're spending a lot of time in our early childhood environments. So how do we want them to feel, and what is the overall experience that we want them to sense as well and grow with and be in?
Yeah, I think you're right, Angela. And I think that's something that I suppose I've been thinking of a lot lately, is when I just look at the piles of documentation. It just comes out of our ears. It literally is exploring from every angle. And like getting back to some of those fundamental things that we talk about with working with children is engagement. And I have just got this huge, big focus at the moment on engagement. That's whether it be child engagement, educator engagement, or parent engagement. And that if we can get engagement right, so if we can get educator engagement and child engagement right with all of these used resources, parents will see it. They will do the collecting for you. You don't even actually have to do a lot yourselves if you really get your engagement coordinated. So once you get your educators inspired, you look at some ideas to set some wonderful things up, it doesn't have to be fancy. Like people think of all these fancy setups. They don't have to be fancy. They've just got to be thoughtfully put together and based on interests of children. So let's go back to some fundamental things around engagement. So if we can get educator engagement, we can get child engagement, we can get our parents involved, bringing in resources, and we can channel that, well, it's actually not going to cost us anything. We don't need to flick through the catalogue. And I think this is a big thing. It's about sustainability, that necessarily flicking through the catalogue or flicking through the website to find really fancy things isn't necessarily the answer to see great engagement for children. And I think that's that's really what I'm trying to talk to you about today, is that it doesn't matter whether you're in Africa and you're working with sticks and stones, or whether you're working in New Zealand with resources that are really exponential in some services, and then in another service, we've got budget constraints coming across early childhood. There is not going to be the money available in early childhood education to spend on resources over the next year while we recover from COVID. This stuff is free. And you can literally change the world for your children on a day-to-day basis by involving your children, by involving your educators, and by getting your parents on board.
100% agree, Michelle, and it's so much better for the environment at the end of the day, and for children to engage with real objects, as you say. And you know what is a real exciting time for me at the moment? I just am getting so back into making resources again. There's a renaissance for me around that. If you can knit, if you can sew, if you can make or do any type of craft, there are so many things that you can do and make, and children absolutely love to engage with those homemade resources. And there's a real joy in that. I think we need to bring a joy back to what we're doing as early childhood teachers. There's such a burden all the time, as you're saying, around documentation. We need to get started on that. We need to be asking ourselves, does this make a difference for children at the end of the day?
Does it matter?
Is it compliance? If it's compliance, yes, do it. If it is not, if it's just become what you do, question that. Let's get back to what's really enjoyable as teachers and what fills up our hearts and souls, so that we can communicate that and share that with children, and they sense that and feel and get the benefit from that.
Lovely.
And thank you once again for joining us. Ka kite anō whānau.
Bye for now.
Bye. Thanks, Michelle.
Bye for now.